a vast subject. Of course, it's a very long process. It's a very long process. 1 year is just exam time when you consider it from pre-mains interview. So it's just the exam cycle is 1 year, and you're supposed to prepare for at least 2 years before sitting for pre. So during this entire process, even if you're clearing in your first attempt, it's at least a 3 year commitment of your life, of your, I'll say, a very most productive time of your life, because it's a choice that you will make, which has opportunity cost also. If you are preparing for UPSC, there are other things that you will be foregoing in order to prepare for UPSC. So you should know in and out before you think about preparing for UPSC. So I'll just start by telling you how I started preparing for it. During when I was in IRMA first year, second year, I will frankly tell you I had not much idea about UPSC. What happens? What's an exam? I just knew of. I was from Delhi and I had a faint idea that okay, UPSC is a government exam. Fine. There are some people who prepare for it and all that. That's it. Nothing. I did not know anything about IAS, IPS, not at all. So it's only after in IRMA, I got this development orientation, and I started working with an organization, like I said before, in Hyderabad it was. But my work was to implement Right to Education Act in the tribal areas of the then Andhra Pradesh before bifurcation. So my job involved a lot of field work to tribal areas. Some of you may know they are also called as ITDAs, Integrated Tribal Development Areas. There I understood what is the kind of role that government plays in the lives of people. In cities, we don't see much, especially in metros, we don't see much of government. But the more backward places you go to, you see how government plays an overarching role in the day-to-day lives of people in providing healthcare, primary education, roads, infrastructure, everything. So there I saw that how some of the IS officers I was working with there, how they were making a big change in the lives of people who were living in those tribal areas. So I got motivated there. And at that time, probably 1 or 2 years into your job life also, there will come a time in some people in your batches will start considering another career option. Probably some will say that they want to go to US, some will say they want to try entrepreneurship, some will say they want to prepare for UPSC. So you'll keep getting that kind of information, and probably you'll also feel that, because we are basically people who want to study or who want to engage ourselves. That is why we have come to IRMA also during that process only, that we want to do something better in our life. We want to achieve something. We don't want to be intellectually lazy. We want to engage ourselves in something that is intellectually very stimulating. So that urge some of you will get, that let's do something more. So at that time I was also faced with that choice. I cleared in 2011. In 2012, 13, I started getting this feeling that I want to do something more than this job. So at that time, I had a lot of choices. Like I said, some I could have gone to US, like some of my batchmates were going. I could have worked with an NGO, or I could have started entrepreneurship. Out of all that, or I actually come from a law background, so everybody in my family is a lawyer or a judge. So I had that option also, that I wanted to probably go for law. So there were a lot of options I had, and out of that, I thought that my personality is such that a career in UPSC will help me a lot. And age was on my side at that time. So I thought that I can give some attempts here and I can try out my hand at UPSC, and other things can happen. But if this doesn't work out. So with this in mind, I started my UPSC preparation while I was in Hyderabad. But at that time I did not have any mentor at all. Like, I did not know anyone who had cleared UPSC. And today, if you see, there is a surge of toppers and people interacting who have cleared UPSC. They interact on YouTube, and you can get a lot of information from those people. So I did not have at that time. So what happened was, that first doubt that comes to your mind is, should I take coaching or not? This is like everyone thinks about it. Should I take coaching or not? And believe me, whether you take coaching or not, this question will come to you all the time, again and again, till the time you clear UPSC. Even if you do one coaching, you will be feeling like, should I do coaching again? Or should I do a physical coaching, or should I do an online coaching? And trust me, if you just look at UPSC syllabus is all about, if you just look at the general studies syllabus, you just need to study books up to 12th. Like if you talk about history, geography, polity, most of the time you will be studying NCERT only. And there are some books which are also 12th or less level, like probably Spectrum you're reading for history, for art and culture you're reading some NCERTs, for geography you're reading again NCERTs. So most of it is general studies paper is NCERTs, and all of us have studied NCERTs. And even if you join a coaching center, they're only going to teach you NCERTs or that level stuff. So at this point, when you've already in post graduation, it is going to be a humongous waste of time for you if you're going to join coaching for general studies. For optional, it's a different matter. I am going to talk about what you have to do for your optional also, what mistakes generally people make in optional. So coaching, I'll recommend that you don't do coaching for general studies. And general studies is vast. You can spend one entire year, and after that, again, you'll feel that you have not really gained any conceptual clarity. You will have to do UPSC is an exam that you will have to put in hard work yourself. You will have to get the conceptual clarity yourself. You will have to be very clear with concepts. You can treat UPSC as a project, that you have to clear this, you have to complete this project, and this project you'll have to clear. No coaching will be able to help you. Yes, it is true that people join coaching, but it is not the coaching that is making them clear the exam. It is their own hard work, their own understanding, their own smart work, their own strategizing, making plans and implementing those plans on a day-to-day basis, their consistency that gets them cleared. Like I can probably talk about, did you clear this exam of IRMA because you joined some coaching? No, it was your own hard work. But even in management exam, there is some technical aspect. But in UPSC, there is no such technical aspect. It is just for general studies. You just have to complete your NCERTs and some such level, only 12th, at max 12th level paper. So please don't, and I will emphasize it again and again, to the point of boring you. Please don't join coaching for GS. Please don't do it. It will, you are just going to increase one more year in your preparation if you do that. And there are so many people who clear exam on their own, and that is how it is cleared only. So second thing is that people ask, should I go to Delhi, or should I, like, because Delhi is a hub, or should I go to Hyderabad, because these two are probably the hubs of UPSC. So I'll say that no need to go to Delhi as of now, because everything, all the coaching centers which are available in Delhi are online. All things, whether they are taking classes, physical classes, they are happening online. Whether they are taking exams, they are happening online. So there's absolutely no need to go to Delhi or any such place. And I'll tell you my experience. I have so many batchmates. Like when I cleared, I think there were around 700, 800 people who cleared UPSC. And there were only like probably 10-15% in the entire lot who prepared from Delhi. Other than that, people from all over the country have cleared this exam. And this thing is clear that you don't need to go to Delhi. And now, not in this era where everything is available online, it will be again a huge waste of time and resources, which you can probably, you, where should you prepare from? You should prepare from a place where you're the most comfortable, where your daily needs are taken care of, because you need to be preparing, giving your 100% to your studies. You cannot be thinking about grocery, or thinking about food, or thinking about अरे मेरा डब्बा आया कि नहीं, and your laundry and all. You should not be thinking about all those things. You in your mind, when you're studying, you should only be thinking about your study, sleeping, and your job. So nothing else should be there, and you can do it only, where is the best place where you can do it, and you should prepare it from there. Now, another doubt that people have is whether they should do it with job or without job. Now, again, I'll say that if 800 people are clearing, then people who now, if you look at UPSC profile, people who are clearing, most of them have professional education. There are very few people who will only be coming from, let's say, a arts graduation background, which was the scenario maybe a generation back. But now most of the people, 95% of, even 90, more than 95% of the people who clear UPSC have professional education, professional technical education, like you guys have. So most of the people are preparing with their jobs and they are clearing. It's just that because they are able to do that kind of a balance properly, or they are in a job where where they are not. It's not a high pressure job. So you can probably, if you are certain that you have to prepare for UPSC, maybe you can choose a job as of now which does not require so much of your time, so that you can probably give your weekends and your evenings for UPSC preparation. So this is something that you'll have to plan it out, but it can definitely be done with a job, and people do with a job. I also prepared with a job only. So there is no reason for you to leave your job. And in fact, I'll tell you that as a person who has already had a good professional education, like from IRMA, if you're going to sit and just prepare for UPSC, it is going to create a lot of mental pressure on you, that you're not doing your job, and that kind of pressure. And when you don't have that kind of pressure, and when you know that okay, you are already in a job and you're just trying to improve your prospects by clearing UPSC, then you will be much more motivated to prepare for UPSC, and you will be able to give your 100% in the preparation. So think about what I'm saying. I'm sharing my experience, not only my experience, I'm also sharing the experience of all the aspirants also who were preparing with me. And I'm also sharing the experience of all the people who cleared with me, because once we clear UPSC, we have our training also with all the people, all the 700, 800 people, and based on interaction with them. So I'm just sort of trying to give you a summary in this time as to what is the general perception. It's just not my learning and my experience and my perception that I'm sharing with you. Right now, I'm sharing a lot of perspectives here. So this is so I talked about coaching online, whether you need it or not. No, you don't need it. Whether you can, for GS you don't need it. I'm going to talk about optional separately. Whether you need to go to Delhi or not, no, you don't need to. You can prepare from anywhere. There are people, all kinds of people, and then there's another thing, that since we are from IRMA, sometimes we feel that we have like sort of a moral authority to be in development sector, and we should be there in UPSC. But I'll tell you something, that UPSC, at the end of the day, it's a competitive exam like any other exam, and it has to be seen as a competitive exam when you start preparing for it. And this exam is cleared by people from all backgrounds, coming from all kinds of places. So you've had some exposure in IRMA that tells you how development sector works, but how development sector works has probably nothing to do with what is the UPSC syllabus, which you have to prepare, and which you have to clear the exam first to get into development sector through UPSC. So probably after you get into UPSC, you have a much better understanding of how development sector works, how government, how development should happen. Maybe you'll be a better officer after you clear IRMA and you clear UPSC. But in IRMA, in UPSC preparation as such, it won't help, because, like I said, that UPSC syllabus is just, most of it is 12th class syllabus. So anybody who's 12th class pass is eligible not eligible, but can prepare for UPSC. So please don't get into that frame of mind that you may have better odds than anyone else in clearing UPSC, because I had that misperception that I may have better odds with than anybody else. It's not like that. And then another thing that comes to your mind is that there are people coming from all kinds of premier educational institutions, like uh, IITs, IIMs. Do they have a better chance? No, it is not like that. The only thing that your background is going to tell you is that yes, you have proved in the past that you can work hard and you can clear an exam, and that is true for everyone who's coming here. So don't be underconfident, but don't be overconfident also throughout the preparation. You have your edge, you have your skills, and you have to strengthen your strengths, and you have to minimize your weaknesses during the entire process. Now I'll talk about optional selection. Now it's very, very important. It's
Ma'am,
crucial.
can
Yes,
I ask just one question about the
yes, please.
coaching? So,
About?
about coaching
Yes,
only.
yes, please. Go
So
ahead.
one of the reasons that people take coaching is because of the peer group as well. So, and that is, I guess, one of the reasons why people move to Delhi or Allahabad or Hyderabad, as you said, because they get a peer group, and that's a different kind of support.
Hmm,
So
hmm, hmm,
when
hmm.
we are preparing, when we are on job or when we are studying, so what is peer group really important? And if it is, then if we are in the job, how do we arrange that kind of
Good,
environment?
very, very good point, because UPSC is a very, very long drawn process. You will need a peer group not only for UPSC preparation, but also that peer group will also act as a motivation factor for you when you're down. And I can tell you that when you are preparing every other week, you may feel those mood swings coming in, coming, going out, and that is another aspect that I will deal with. But yes, it is true that people go to Delhi or these hubs where they think that they will get that peer group. But I can tell you that if 100 people are doing one class coaching, you will be very lucky if you find even one person who's serious about UPSC preparation. You may actually get diverted there. It is very, very, very difficult to find a person who matches your frequency, your mental frequency, or uh, your someone you can share it with. I mean, in my entire 4 years of preparation, I I think one or two I used to get. I think total one or two people I got with whom I actually did some kind of group study. But mostly it's a journey that you have to undertake yourself. Now, it's very important to have a peer group, because when I had it, whenever I brief, see what happens in UPSC preparation also is that people are at different stages. Let's say you and I are preparing. I cleared pre, and you did not clear pre. So our paths are diverging at that point. Are you getting my point? So people are all the time, those things, dynamics are changing all the time. Now you may feel that you are more serious than your peer group. Then you may not be, because it's a very objective based peer group that you're making. So you have to be very, very clear who you're associating with. Because if you're associating with a person who's bringing you down, then your preparation is going to just go sidetracked. But if you do get someone, it's like, I answer your question as to whether it's important to go to Delhi or not. But what you can do is, like, you already have, like, let's say in IRMA, you have people who may be preparing. In your graduation, people may be preparing, or you can join some of the groups on Telegram where people may be preparing, or all these social media, all these some websites are also there where people write answers and all. So you can get in touch with them online. So whatever you could do physically earlier, you can do the same things online. Like right now we are having this interaction online. It is no less in quality than what you're going to talk to me about when I meet you physically. So that can be simulated online, everything. But yes, if you get peer group, it will, if you get the right person who matches your mental frequency, your dedication, your discipline, your motivation level, your attitude. If you get that kind of a person, then definitely it will boost your preparation like anything. And how you can use this is that you can probably decide that, okay, let's say Shrikant is there and Rajika is there. So probably you can take UPSC syllabus and you can say, okay, so this is 1857 struggle for independence. So this is a topic that we are going to cover from this particular book, let's say Spectrum. And after 15 days, we'll come and we'll discuss it for 1 hour. Now, how this is going to help you is, it is going to give you a kind of a motivation to study properly, because you are now accountable that you have to complete it by that time when you decided to meet. But don't ever think of studying together like we used to probably do in school and all. That is not going to be productive. Why? You should always ask a why. When you're in UPSC, get into asking a lot of whys for everything. The why is that my style of reading and your style of reading is going to be very different, and we need extreme focus when we are studying. So at that time, you should be alone and you should be only focusing on understanding and getting conceptual clarity. So now another doubt that people have is UPSC about rote memory, or is it about conceptual clarity? So I'll say that it is about both. So you have to have conceptual clarity. If you look at the previous year question paper, which I highly recommend that you start your preparation by looking at previous 10-year papers of all the pre, mains, GS, and optional. And from day one, you have to start looking. If you're thinking of UPSC, then this, because ultimately your output is that only your papers, where you're going to write whatever you have learned in 2 3 years of preparation. You're going to write that in the exam. So you have to look at the papers, the way UPSC asks questions, and you have to orient yourself that whenever you're studying a big text, like a very long text, entire NCERT book, what is it that UPSC can ask? So you should always keep 10 years with you when you're studying, always. And whenever you're studying, let's say I took the example of 1857 struggle for independence. So before starting the topic, you have to see what are the questions that were asked in those 10 years. That will speed up your preparation like anything, and that will take you in the right direction. So I think I was talking about optional initially. So so what kind of optional you should choose? Now, when I started preparing for UPSC, I come from a commerce background, and I was crystal clear that I am going to take either commerce or economics and nothing else. Like, so crystal clear, and but I started talking with a lot of so-called experts in UPSC, and they told me, what, economics, commerce, people don't get marks in economics and commerce these days. क्या चल रहा है आजकल आजकल चल रहा है एंथ्रोपोलॉजी चल रहा है आजकल ज्योग्राफी चल रहा है तो आप इनमें से कुछ चूज करिए so I got totally sidetracked and I chose anthropology. A commerce graduate is choosing anthropology who's had no background in biology at all, because in 11th, 12th, I did not have biology. So, and I've seen so many, I am not the only one who's made that mistake and lengthened my UPSC journey. There are most of the people do that. They just start listening to what is the optional, which is doing well these days. Let's take that optional, and there they are digging their own grave at that time. What you have to do is you have come from some background, either it's arts or commerce or science. So UPSC is so generous that if you look at the optionals list, it gives around probably even 25, 30 optional subjects are there. You have to choose from that, and UPSC is strategically giving you, GS is same for everyone. No matter which background you've come from, GS syllabus is same for everyone, but UPSC is giving you an opportunity here in choosing optionals that you play on your strength. Here, this is the only opportunity you're getting from UPSC, where you're going to play on your strength. So play on your strength. Let's say anybody from commerce here?
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody from? Okay,
actually,
what's
I
your name?
studied Anushka De.
Anushka De.
Ma'am, actually,
Okay.
I studied commerce and then economics graduate from Delhi University.
Okay, that's very nice. So, so let's say Anushka, Anushka, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Anushka.
Anushka.
Okay,
Anushka.
Anushka. Let's say I give you. Let's say all of us criticize our education system. We say that we studied and we put it in our short-term memory, and then we just like wrote it, and we don't remember anything what we did in our graduation or we did in our school. That is, if we all are coming from a good academic background, we all have been good in our academics mostly. So more than average, everyone is here, I think. So it's true for everyone that everyone did that short-term memory thing and wrote and gave the exam. But today, if I ask you, okay, Anushka, tell me what is inflation? Will
Yes,
you be
ma'am.
able to tell me?
Yes.
Will you be able to tell me more than a layperson would be able to tell me who's never studied commerce or economics?
I guess so,
Let's say
ma'am.
I ask a science person, you have that confidence, or I'll ask an arts person what is inflation. Will you be able to give a better answer than them? So because you have the strength that you studied that, okay, that is how everyone has a strength. So if you look at UPSC optional papers, it's just an honors level exam, optional paper. It's just an honors level which you guys have already studied. Some subject you have already studied in graduation. Please choose that.
Ma'am,
Otherwise,
I have
yes.
a question. Ma'am, also in UPSC, I had previously went through the syllabus. So, ma'am, there is also a course called management. So, as we are graduates in postgraduates in management, we can also opt for that, right?
Yes, definitely. You can opt. There are people who have cleared with management also. They had, but the only criteria I'm saying here is please try to understand is something that you've already studied in your 11th, 12th graduation. Because optional is something which is going to consume the most of your time, and it is going to be the toughest. Like I already said, GS is mostly at most 12th class level. So it's the optional which is graduation level. It is definitely going to be most time consuming for you, and you need to economize on your time, how you're spending your time in preparation on what subject. So that is why it's very crucial to choose an optional which is as per your educational background. First point. Second point is that why it's also important to choose an optional in which you've already had understanding is because GS almost gives, if you look at toppers and their marks, you'll see that there's not much variation in the kind of marks that they are getting in GS. But in optional, it makes huge difference. You can be out of the list and you can be inside the list if you're good in your optional list as a final merit list. So choosing the right optional, if you've chosen the right optional in mains, getting an interview call, like um, you've already increased your chances of success by like multitudes if you're choosing the right optional. So be very careful. Don't get into that. आजकल optional market में क्या चल रहा है? Which optional is getting the highest marks? Please don't get into that, because there are people. There are my batchmates who spent a lot of years. I also spent a lot of years just because of optional, choosing wrong optional. I did clear, but there are so many times that aspirants are not able to clear because they choose a wrong optional. So please spend a lot of time thinking about how do you make a choice. There is you look at the UPSC list first of all. See which options are familiar to you based on your educational background. Then you buy their 10 years, and then you see that without preparing, if you were to solve, and will you be able to do a decent enough job even without preparing in that particular optional? है ना? Of course, you're going to prepare, but your backhand knowledge will help you like anything. So, in whichever paper you're picking up, and you're feeling comfortable there, that okay, I know something here, I can write here, and I can write the best in this particular exam, choose that optional. I mean, I'm spending a lot of time on optional because this is the most crucial aspect in the entire UPSC preparation. It is like uh, it is like that 80-20 that we talk about. Anybody knows about Pareto principle 80-20. So choosing that optional is like that 80. This one decision will set you for success.
Ma'am,
So
I have
yeah, please go ahead.
actually what happens during the preparation, sometimes be it for the GS or for the optional, we get involved in one topic, like you mentioned the 1857 revolt. So like it is a broad topic.
80-20.
No, I'm not, I'm saying 1857 revolt of the first
Oh
revolt.
yeah, okay, yeah,
So
sure.
suppose I get that topic and I'm interested in history or maybe economics, whatever. So, ma'am, there is a topic and I like I'm reading about it, and the topics are itself so vast in one subject. So, how to understand up to what level of depth I have to go into that subject of that topic? Because so that what happens that I may lose track and I may go into depths and I will be off track of other subjects. So how to keep that
Okay.
in mind?
It's a very good point because I used to also make this mistake a lot that, I used to uh, take up a topic and then I used to be like, no, I have to go further deep into it. But again, I'll say the same thing. And this is something that a lot of people told me also, which I did not understand. And later on, I understand is that at the end of the day, UPSC GS syllabus is a 12th class syllabus at most. Most of the books that you will be studying are at most 12th class exam. So you have to understand according to that only. If you are going to pick up a very tough book, let's say for 1857 Revolt, if you're going to find online, there are going to be thousands of books on it, even for people who are doing PhD in that subject. So if you're going to, there are books like that, and I studied those books like. There was this very thick book that I studied for that. There was no need. Only what you need is a spectrum, that
Okay.
thin book that comes, very small books, and you will. I'll assure you that you're not going to finish that thin book in less than a year. One reading. It's content heavy, super heavy on content. So, so how do you avoid getting into depth, and how do you avoid getting away from your topic, which you have to prepare? Is first of all, remember this, because first time you will remember it, but it may happen that you again get sidetracked and you again started collecting a lot of books for that same topic, and then after some time you'll again, when you'll start getting clarity, you'll again come to that only, that you'll only be taking only one book for one topic. This is a rule that you have to follow in your entire UPSC journey. People who clear UPSC, they have generally these many books. If you talk about physically, these many books for their GS, and these many books for optional. That's it. But what we do over a period of time is we become a collector. Before becoming a collector, we start collecting a lot of books. We think that, some people take it upon themselves to buy every book that is available and create a huge library. Those are the people who never clear this exam. Okay, don't become those people. Why? You should always ask the why. Why are you saying that the more books I read, the more I should know? No, it's not like that. UPSC is an exam about. It's an exam about conceptual clarity. Okay, it's about like if I'm saying, let's say for example, if I'm saying what is inflation, so you should be able to tell me in one line that it is nothing but a rise in general price levels. That's it. Now, how many books do you need to read to know this? The more number of books you'll read, the more you'll get confused, because there are different definitions that you'll read in different books. At the end of the day, when I'm going to ask you, you will not be able to answer me because you've studied so much on it that it's so much clouding. And UPSC is an exam in which you have to do so much quick thinking when the exam is there, that unless you have that kind of conceptual clarity, unless you remember exactly where you read that, or 1857 revolt, something is being asked, it should just click, and it can only click when you have only one source for that topic. And of course, don't think that maybe a book is not enough because probably it doesn't have enough content. So maybe that is why I should go for another book. Maybe it will have more content. It is not like that. Take the best source in the market, and stick to it. You will get all your answers if you read that one best source, because UPSC is not trying to trick you. Understand that it is not going to ask you a question which, oh, this person can't answer this. Let's ask this. I'll ask from that book which nobody knows. That is not the purpose of UPSC. UPSC is trying to check your conceptual clarity. Okay, they're not trying to trick you that they'll ask you some question which you don't know. They only want to know you read something, you spent 2 years in reading something. Now you tell me, do you understand that topic or not? So don't get into that mode that people do that. 99% of the people do that. They're going to collect for one topic 5 different books, and they never have conceptual clarity because of this. So don't do that. And then and anybody wants to ask any other question? Those the 2-3 questions that you asked are very, very, very relevant, very marvelous. And I can tell you that these are the questions that are going to come to you again and again. So that is why I'm spending a lot of time on these questions. And another question that people ask is about it may sound silly, and I'm going to take it up because it may sound silly, but it is not silly. And just to make you think that nothing that comes to your mind at this point or entire UPSC journey is silly or just a silly doubt. Or if you're going to ask, then people are going to say, "Arey, what is he asking? Yeah, what is this like?" It's not like that. Even if I ask this doubt, this doubt I had even when I was coming back from my interview, and this doubt was that should I study at night or should I study in morning? Should I be an early bird or should I be a night owl? Now, it may look very silly, but when you are actually in the preparation mode, then it will come to you again and again. What time should I study? The right time to study is when you are the most productive. Now, scientific studies have proved that there are two kinds of people. One are diurnal, one are nocturnal. So whichever you are, and you know your rhythm, your and which time you are the most productive. Use that time to study, and use that time to study the toughest topic or the toughest subject at that time. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what time you're studying. You have to write an exam after 2 years or 3 years, whatever. In that, you need to be able to produce what you've studied. And for that, your conceptual clarity is important. For that, it is not important what time you're studying. And for that, you need to be productive. How do you be productive? Don't say, I'm going to sit and study for 8 hours or 10 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours, whatever that is. Don't give yourself these kind of targets, because this is a very ambiguous target. What are you achieving at the end of those at the end of that 4 5 hours of study? So give yourself a target. Okay, I'm going to complete this topic today. Okay. And don't be very harsh with yourself. When you are not preparing properly, you are basically preparing to fail. What I used to do, and what many people still do and used to do, my batchmates, is they used to set very high targets. Like in this week, I am going to complete entire UPSC GA syllabus. And then, of course, you can't achieve that, or something of that sort. And then you are like, at the end of the week, you have done something very substantial. Okay, maybe you completed 2 topics from GS1, and that's very good to be able to complete in 1 week. Very, very good. But my target is that I have to complete entire GS syllabus, and then I'm always demotivated. People are always demotivated. So don't do that, because UPSC is a very, very long journey. You have to self motivate yourself, and the only way you will be able to motivate yourself is by giving these small targets to yourself and achieving them in time. So be very realistic. I won't say be very loose with yourself. I won't say don't be very harsh with yourself, but be very realistic. Try to understand how much you can achieve, and be productive, not in terms of number of hours. Be productive in terms of topics. That okay, I have to complete this topic from this particular source, and I will complete this. Okay. So, like, I don't know whether you've studied project management or not. So, in project management, we do that kind of planning. You know, so you have to understand what is the resource. Resource is your intellect and your time. So you have to understand with your intellect and with your time how much you can produce. Based on that, you do your planning. Then another important thing is that when should you give your first attempt? First of all, if you've thought today that okay, I'm going to start preparing for it, most of the people do this mistake. I also made this mistake. But smart people are those who learn from others' mistakes. So I was not that smart. So, but probably some of you are much smarter than me. So you can learn from my mistake is, don't think that pre is the only stage. You know about it, right? There are 3 stages in UPSC, civil services examination. One is the pre part, which is objective. Then mains, then interview. And pre is just the tip of the iceberg. Pre is to fool you. Pre is to like, okay, if you are thinking that I can clear pre, then you're only going to clear pre. And it's the main 98% of your time has to go on mains preparation. You have to be thorough with your optional. You have to be thorough with entire GS syllabus. Two things which have to be on your table when you're preparing all the time. One is your GS syllabus, sorry, not GS syllabus, UPSC entire syllabus, and your previous 10-year paper. You have to continuously go through them when you're studying, and you have to see that you're aligning your studies according to what is going to be asked. UPSC is only going to stick to that syllabus and those previous 10-year question papers. So you have to, sometimes we again go very like sidetrack, and we just start reading something, and we are reading newspaper, we are just going to keep reading newspaper for hours. It's just a humongous waste of time, because if you don't know that how UPSC asks questions from current affairs, what kind of questions are asked, then what are you reading? What is your objective of reading newspaper every day and wasting your 2 hours on it? So you have to continuously align yourself according to what UPSC wants. And UPSC wants what it has already very clearly told in its syllabus and its previous papers. You don't need to know anything else. Just follow that and align your studies to these two things. Okay, so when you should give your first attempt is, first you have to start preparing for mains. When I talk about GS whatever GS questions, I'm not talking about the CSAT part, which is just a qualifying exam now. I'm talking about the GS part, the history and the geography and all that. You start preparing GS mains first. See its syllabus, identify one source for topics, and start preparing for that. Your GS pre will be covered in that. You will be much more prepared for clearing pre if you're focusing on mains. And after you start preparing for mains, your GS mains and your optional, then you have to start writing mock tests. If you're doing decent in mock tests, only then you can think about filling the UPSC form for writing exam. Otherwise, don't create that. Could you have cleared IRMA without preparing for MBA entrance exams? No, you couldn't have, right? You can fill as many forms as you want every year, as much as you want, but to complete the syllabus, you have to write a mock test. UPSC is just the same. If you're going to give exam without preparing for the entire three-step process, you're not going to clear it. And what that does is that starts creating pressure on you, that okay, I failed in one attempt, I failed in two attempts, and I was not, because you were not prepared. So first prepare for mains. Pre will be covered in that, and then you start writing your mock test in any of those. You can write mock tests online. So many mock tests are there. Other thing, that one, there are two strategies. First, you cover the syllabus, and then you start writing mock tests. Other strategy is, I've tried both, and both are good, depending upon how you space the exams. So the other strategy is that you'll see that some coaching centers, they conduct mock exams every 15 days, and they give a section of syllabus, like 2-3 topics. So you can say, if you have, like Rachita was asking, peer group. If you don't have a peer group, how do you motivate yourself to study in a methodical way? You can join a test series, and let's say they are giving a syllabus. Okay, this 2-3 topics we are going to have an exam after 1 month. So that will give you an objective, and that will give you a motivation that I have an exam for these topics. I have to prepare these topics for that exam. And once you start preparing with that, it will be another like 1 year process in which you will be preparing with those tests. And then those are sectional tests. After that, when you've completed your optional, when you've completed your GS main syllabus, then you start writing the entire exam, just as we write in UPSC, those 3-hour exams. And then when you're preparing, when you are doing well in that, when the result is coming, and you can see that, yeah, I am actually, there's a merit list, and people are, I'm in somewhere in toppers. Then, because these exams are more or less UPSC type exams, if you choose 2-3 those coaching centers mock tests, everybody knows what those 2-3 coaching centers are, which are giving online mock tests. So you can So this is one way to prepare. But UPSC is something that is going to be a project for, even if you clear in first attempt, it's going to be a project of at least 3 to 4 years. 3 years will be there because 2 years of study and 1 year of the entire exam process. So it's going to be a very, very huge commitment. I used to get doubts whether I'm making the right decision of preparing for it or not. And that was not a right thing. Once you've decided, then you plunge with everything. And one of the things that is going to make you stick to the preparation is, do you like studying or not? It's going to be like so much studying, even if you're taking one source for every topic. It's going to be so much studying, it's going to be crazy studying for you. It's going to be on your mind all the time. And the only reason is that at the end of the day, whether you like studying or not is going to make you stick to the preparation. Because most of the time it's a journey in which you will be alone, and it's very, very important that you have some people who are giving you motivation. At that time you have to totally cut out negative people who are saying that no, don't do it, why are you doing it after IRMA, you already have a career, or why are you wasting time in this, or why, you will not be able to clear it because it's a very, very competitive exam. Don't listen to those people. Anybody can clear it, and it's a fact that people from all kinds of background clear it. And even if you talk about cream institutions, there are very few people who come from cream institutions in UPSC. Most of the people are not from cream institutions. 95% of the people who are coming from cream institutions, they become the headlines. That is why we think these are the only people who may be coming there, but it is not true. 95% of the people are coming from non-cream background. Okay, so anyone can clear it, but you need to have that discipline to carry yourself with a very high motivation, with a high discipline, consistency, patience, to be able to follow a schedule, to be able to self motivate yourself. How to it's also a big journey in identifying what kind of a person you are, what kind of emotional issues you have, because you will be alone most of the time and you will have those mood swings. How to handle those mood swings? Initially, I used to get rattled a lot about my mood swings, and I used to start questioning myself. And then I talked to one person. He said that mood swings are going to be a part of your life till the time you prepare for UPSC. So at that time, my perspective changed. That okay, I studied for entire week. Now today is Saturday. Half of the day I'm going to take off. I'm just going to enjoy, eat out or whatever with somebody I enjoy with, not with people I don't enjoy with. And it is just something that I'm feeling low. Tomorrow I'll get back again to studying. So I think I've covered a lot of topics here. And again, I'll say that uh, like one of my seniors say that hard work is good, but hard work without a goal, it takes you nowhere. And that goal, it doesn't match with your personality, it doesn't take you anywhere in life, it doesn't make you happy. Even if you're successful, you won't be happy. So it's very, very important that you understand that whether your personality matches with UPSC or not. UPSC has two parts. One is the exam part, one is the career, actually job part. So there are many among us who may think that development sector is not for them, and there's nothing to feel bad about it. That is not their personality. That's okay. So they should not be working in development sector. They should be working in corporate sector if they think like that. Okay. Then another thing is that UPSC, like I said, is for very, very certain kind of people who can do hard work for years. It's structured in a way that it's a 1 year long process because it wants to test your patience, because working in government is a very tough job, because the structure of the government is such that you have to push things. It's a huge, it's a behemoth. You have to basically like push a lot of things to get work done. So it's like that, a long drawn process by design. Only people who can clear UPSC, there are only 2-3 things that you can say about them. They may not be super intelligent, but they are hardworking, okay, and they are consistent and they are patient, and they are mentally very strong. these things you can say about those people. I don't know, intelligence probably or not, you're just studying a 12th level at max graduation level exam, nothing rocket science about it. So I won't say intelligence differs also from people to people who clear UPSC exams. But definitely these are the traits that you must have. If you are a person who says that I can't sit for 5 hours at a stretch, or I don't see myself sitting in a room alone at this point in my life. I want to enjoy life at this time, or I want to probably try entrepreneurship, or I want to go abroad and I want to have a better lifestyle. I don't want to work in rural areas, remote areas, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Then don't come for this exam. It's very very important that you understand your personality. एक वो होता है ना कि मेरा फ्रेंड कर रहा है तो मैं कर लूं. We have done that a lot our entire lives. But you make this decision of UPSC only when you want to do it from within. I'll take a very very simple example. For example, when I started working after IRMA, like I was faced with this doubt what I should do with my life, what I should prepare, whether I should go to US, whether I should do this or that. And then I came to this conclusion that okay, a career after UPSC will be something that will be more suitable for me. But there was my husband at the same time. He's also from IRMA. He's 1 year senior to me, and at that time he was very clear that he never wants to prepare for UPSC because he said that my personality is not like this. I don't want to work under anyone. I want to work for myself, and I want to be known for my skill, and I want to have my own setup. He wanted to go for entrepreneurship, and my personality, my orientation was very different. I wanted to go for UPSC. At the time when I started preparing for UPSC, he started getting interested in stock market. So by the time I cleared UPSC and joined his job in 2017, he already became a professional in stock trading. And he was getting a lot more than he was getting in his job through IRMA. So he resigned his job and I joined my job. And he's very happy and very successful in his chosen field. And I'm very happy and very successful in my chosen field. But both of our temperament are very different. Although we are spouses and we have been together for a decade now, both of us are very different. So you have to understand this, that whether you have that personality that matches with UPSC or not. With this, I think I've pretty much covered all the points, most of the main points. We can take up some questions if you would like.
Hello, Deepali ma'am.
Yes. Hi.
Yes, Purushottam here. Since I'm an engineer graduate, so how do I help myself in selecting an optional? Because you know what engineers do throughout their 4 years of graduation, right?
So
They don't
what you
align
do is
themselves.
exactly what we did.
No, because
No, it
streamlining
is
ourselves
true.
into selecting an optional is a very tough job, I see, for an engineer at least.
Okay. So, what specialization did you do in engineering?
Electronics and communication.
Electronics and communication. Okay. Anything other than that that you studied? Is electronics and communication as part of that optional list?
No, not exactly. There is some
Okay.
technical subject,
So,
but it is not related to that exactly.
but you have a lot of options. You can first what you can do is you can list out all the subjects that you studied in your 11th, 12th, and
Okay.
graduation, and even post graduation. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, probably you studied biology, chemistry,
Okay.
or you studied I think management. You're studying right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, out of all those 25 topics,
Mm-hmm.
25 optionals, you will definitely get 3, 4 subjects which you will be more familiar with. So you have to
Okay.
list out like this. And
Okay.
then you have to
Okay.
go through the question papers of previous years and see your familiarity with the kind of questions they're asking.
Okay, that was a good answer. So I'll follow that. And also one question from my
And
side is
another thing
yes,
I'd
yes.
like to add here is, sorry to interrupt you. Another thing is that there are people who clear with electric. My one of my batchmates is there. He was a topper in electrical engineering. I think that's an optional there or not in UPSC.
Yes,
Yes,
there are some
ma'am.
technical aspects to it. Yes, there are options related to that.
Yes, it is there.
So
Like,
I think his optional in this also was electrical engineering only. He first cleared this engineering
Mm-hmm.
exam and then this with the same optional. So like
Ma'am,
I
Mm-hmm.
said, we
engineering is a
only
big
hear
subject.
about those optionals in media, which probably some vested interests want to popularized so that more and more crowd
Mhm.
comes for that for those optionals. But people are
Mhm.
clearing from all possible options.
Okay, okay. Also, ma'am, my second question is, since you talked this as a project, right? So, and you also talked about project management. So, how do I track my daily progress and how to align that with a goal and how it is exactly process oriented thing? Because it's a process made and a tracker should be made by self only, right? So,
Right.
how it is efficient and I mean, there are people who have made trackers and who have failed and who are successful also. So, how do you make use of the tracker?
So if what I understand is most of you must be at the beginner level right now.
Correct.
Hana. So what you have to understand here is that at this point nobody knows what their output will be or what their
Mhm.
output is.
Yes.
Right now, probably your capacity to study at a stretch is probably 1 hour. Even that's decent enough to
Correct.
start
Correct.
with. It's only after maybe 5, 6 months of study that you can say that okay, I studied for 6, 7 hours,
Mhm.
or I came back from my job, or I came back from classes and I studied for 2, 3 hours.
Mhm.
But initially, you're just testing the waters because it happened
Correct.
with me also. Initially, when I thought of starting preparing for it, I just did not have the motivation. So I talked to my friend and he said that do one thing, pick up any book and whatever
Mhm.
you find interesting, just read that. And I picked it up
Mhm.
and then I saw that I was actually getting interest in that. So first you have to test the waters and
Mhm.
see what level you are at, and it will be different for everyone. So,
Correct.
but your tracker has to be very personalized according to you. So now there is a principle called as 80-20 principle, Pareto
Mhm.
principle, in which you have to understand that that there will be some topics which you will give 20% of your time, but they will be 80% relevant. For
Okay.
example, if you look at GS mains syllabus,
Mhm.
if you see GS1,
Mhm.
the first topic is about art and culture, and there is just very one sentence
Mhm.
written about art and
Mhm.
culture of India, and people start with that, and for months they are reading that art and culture from different from different sources.
Mhm.
Now, understand, look at the previous year question papers, you'll see that not more than 1 or 2 questions are asked from that
Mhm.
in the entire. I think that if you talk about the entire paper of
Mhm.
UPSC mains, it's only like let's say 1% on which you're spending months. So
Mhm.
you have to be very clear as to how you have to spend more time on what is going to give the most productivity for you. So
Mhm.
but this will come with time. This will come with experience. Initially, 2, 3 months only. You will be just trying to understand the syllabus, just trying to
Mhm.
understand the previous year question papers. You try to understand the sources, which is the best source. You'll try to identify
Correct.
that. And in this, I'll say that one thing that is going to help you immensely is that start listening to toppers who have cleared, how they've
Mhm.
cleared, what was their strategy. It is going to help you like anything, and
Mhm.
also start going through their copies, how they write
Mhm.
the
Also,
answers,
yes, yes.
because answer
That
writing is very,
yes.
very crucial. If you
Correct.
know a
Correct.
lot and you're not able to put it on paper,
Correct.
then entire effort is wasted. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
should know when
Mhm.
you're studying how you're going to put it on paper
Mhm.
when a question is asked.
Yes.
Okay.
So we yes, yes. So we talked about trackers, right? So I wanted to ask, can we break down that into numbers? Because since an engineer, I want that topics and theories and the daily trackers to be in numbers, right? So that we can manage off and we can really, I mean, monitor that numbers, right? How we are tracking and how we are progressing, right? So can we break down into numbers, or it is just the number of topics and the number of days and the number of hours and the progress that you are doing?
Numbers doesn't, as I didn't
Numbers
get
as in
numbers.
the number of topics that you have and the number of units that you want to cover and the number of subjects that you want to cover and how many hours are you devoting and how efficient are you and how it will help you. I mean, I want to break down
You
into
can.
numbers. Is it possible or is it not?
It is definitely possible, but it will only happen in your second round of study, not in your first round. Because in the
Okay.
first round, only you'll be able to understand approximately how much time a topic takes. Some topics take less time, some
Okay.
topics take more
Yes,
time.
yes.
So
Correct,
in
correct,
the like I said, you have to test the waters first. You have to understand the
correct,
source. You have to basically do a lot of preparation before starting the project. So your
correct,
preparation phase will take around 2, 3 months, in which you will
correct.
be able to gather all the resources, and then you can start doing this kind of planning.
Also, one last question from my side. Sorry for asking so many questions. One last
No,
question from
please
my
go
side
ahead.
is,
You're asking for
yes,
everyone here, and your
yes.
questions are very, very relevant to everyone who wants to prepare.
Yes. So one last question is, generally the news is around interview that many people crack pre and mains and they struggle a lot in interview. So do
Oh,
we need
yes.
to groom ourselves for interview, or is it like we can be ourselves only that for that interview?
Very, very, very good question. Thank you. I totally skipped this point, and there's this thing called as like first of all, UPSC entire preparation is integrated. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, you don't have to prepare for pre, you have to prepare for mains.
Main.
Pre,
Correct.
if you're going to draw a Venn diagram, you'll see that
Mm-hmm.
mains is a bigger circle,
Yes. Yes.
and the pre is a very, very small
Smaller.
circle within that. Plus,
Correct.
a little bit you can draw like this, which is the CSAT part, which I
Yes.
don't
Yes.
think most of you would have a
Yes.
problem
It's
with.
just now
But
a
if you just
qualifying
talk
one. Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
yeah, if you just talk about the GS part, then it is a GS is like the tip of the iceberg, a very, very small circle within a
Okay.
bigger GS mains of
Mm-hmm.
entire mains. And the same way, uh, even interview preparation is happening with your mains preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what exactly I sat in interview once only, and but there are so many people who sit in interviews again
Correct.
and again, and
Yes.
my experience and their experience is that for interview you don't have to prepare anything extra. It's just that
Okay.
your entire year preparation that
Mm-hmm.
you are doing, that is going to be sort of they're going to ask bits and pieces from it. Now, how do they go about interview is such a vast topic that I can speak about it like entire day.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I'll just give you some pointers regarding it.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone heard of detailed application form?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You
Yes.
have. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is good that you know this before preparation. Most of us don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not know. I came to know about it only when my pre-result came out and I had to fill it. You basically detailed application form is a form that you fill after you clear pre and your mains notification comes, mains
Mm-hmm.
exam notification comes, and then you have to fill this DAF, and a very short window is given to you to fill that. Now, what does
Mm-hmm.
it have? It asks you your preference in services. Now, I
Correct.
don't know how many of you know that in this through this exam there are like around 22 to 25 services that you
Yes.
get into.
Mm-hmm.
There's IS, IFS, IRS, and but there are other than these, there are a lot of central civil services. So they'll be
Mm-hmm.
asking you your preference. Most of
Okay.
the people, I know one of my batchmates who made a mistake in filling that preference. Basically, most of us copy paste at that time. We don't have time
Mm-hmm.
to, because we are focused on mains preparation at that time. So we did not we generally don't have time, and he did some mistake in copy pasting at that time, and he
Okay.
ended up in a lower service than his merit would have given him.
Mm-hmm.
So this mistake has happened to some people, and but you also need to know about all the services, because once you're going for an exam, you can
Mm-hmm.
end up anywhere.
Correct.
So
Yes.
make sure that you know about all the services that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am,
Then this
I had a question. Ma'am, actually, I was asking about the services only. Ma'am, as you told that you, for your journey was you went into a development sector, you got to know how what the government role plays, and that's why you aspired to come into UPSC. Mostly, it's the same for me or many other people. Like we want to go into the development sector and we want to do grassroots level change through the government side. Ma'am, but what if, like after preparation for so many years and giving the exams, we end up in a service which is not IAS, IPS, IRS, or IFS, and we get into other services
yeah,
and
like I am in allied services.
yes, ma'am.
I am in allied services, and it's a very different job than what IS is. Very,
Yes.
very different, because I'll talk about my batchmates who are in IS or IPS or Indian Forest Service also. Some of you may be giving Indian Forest Service also. I don't know. It has the same syllabus. These are three all India services, but Indian Forest Service is a separate exam to UPSC altogether. You don't get it through UPSC civil services examination. So these are three all India services that you have in India. What it essentially means is that you can get posted anywhere in any state throughout your life, and you will be in that cadre. Cadre is basically state. That state you will be in there, and if you are getting in one of these services, it is 95% chances that you will be in a tier 2, tier 3 kind of a place. You will not be in metros. You will not be in state capitals. Probably at the end of your career, later half of your career, you will be in the state capital. Other than that, you will be in very those kind of locations. You might have seen already what kind of locations I'm talking about. And so these are the three services in which you will get those kind of posting. But most other, like I said, that through this exam you have 20 to 25 services, and out of those, two are IAS IPS, in which you get this kind of cadre system. Rest are central civil services, including Indian Revenue Service. So you generally get posted in cities. They come under central services, and the job profile is very different. They are generally very specialized services, like accounting services are there, or revenue service itself is a very specialized service. All the services mostly are very specialized services. IAS is the only service which is a very generalist service in the entire all the services. So like if I talk about my job, mostly my job is 10 to 6, 11 to 6, something like that, Monday to Friday. Saturday Sunday nobody bothers me, and I do my job, and I have a very nice work life balance. And I according to my personality, it matches me, because my batchmates who are actually posted in those kind of locations, they are on duty all the time. Even for their wedding, they don't get a leave. They can't leave that station. They just can't leave that station. I can apply leave anytime. I can get the leave, and but they can't get that kind. They don't have that luxury of getting a leave even when they're sick. They get calls in the middle of the night. Okay, the way movies show, it looks glamorous probably, but I don't know how many of us would want that in our late 20s or early 30s when we are actually getting into the service.
Ma'am, yeah, means my
So that's
actual
why I said personality matching has to be there. If you want to do it for the rest of your life, if you want to be okay with the fact that you are from already a professional background, and you are already used to, you will get into some jobs, you will be getting a decent salary, and you will be used to a particular lifestyle, going out and a good infrastructure, basic facilities, going to movies, and ordering on Zomato and all that. That may not be possible in you if you get into IAS, IPS, IFS, because these people, most of my batchmates are at very remote locations where it is just even impossible to make a call to them and talk to them without having a network connection issue. So, so you have to be ready for that kind of a thing also. So
yeah.
there's
Ma'am, so my question was, suppose I actually want that, suppose a person wants that kind of life to work in the grassroots level, but for
There
some
are people who
reason,
want that kind of life,
but,
and they should definitely go for that kind of life.
no, but what if the selection does not happen, and then once ends up in a service in the metro, in a, like, 9 to 5 job of the government, so then it's wasted,
It's a
right?
very good question. Like, I wanted to go for IS, but I did not get IS. I'm in IS ally. It just turned out that now I'm in my early 30s, so I am very comfortable in the kind of job that I am in. There's a nice work-life balance. I'm able to stay with my spouse, which most of the IS people are not able to. IFS people are not able to stay with their spouse. But what happens here is that our rankings, when we are all going through the same exam, right? It's the same exam that we're all writing, irrespective of what service we are getting. So we are getting the same rankings. There is a ranking called as assistant secretary. Then there is deputy secretary, then there is joint secretary, additional secretary, secretary. These are the rankings that are going on for everyone, irrespective of the kind of service you are in. So once I complete my 5 years in this service, I am able to go on deputation. So I can fill that deputation and I can go to any ministry I want to work with. I am not stuck anywhere, and you can also, or anyone from any service can go on deputation like that and work in any ministry if you're interested in it.
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
just
I have
adding
a
to
question.
this, I wanted to ask from a career perspective, because are you able to hear me, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. So I have
Your name is?
I'm Manoja. So
Manuja.
I'm from Theorem 40. I've passed out in April, and currently, like you, I'm working in PR and RD in Hyderabad, your commissionerate. So I am
Oh,
placed here.
okay.
Even Anjanelu sir is working there from your batch.
Oh,
Um,
okay, okay.
yeah,
That's
so,
nice.
yeah. So actually, I wanted to ask from the even where you want to decide that you want to actually prepare, like from an Irman point of view. So when
Uh,
you are actually a development candidate and you actually want to bring change, that is what you want to do. And
uh,
uh, what I see from here is that IAS officers or IFS officers who are here, they mostly facilitate or like they are mostly in authority, and there's a lot of political intervention at all levels, as you know.
uh,
So when you actually want to bring change, I also have this privilege being an Irman that I can go into development through my field also. Like I have many avenues to make.
yes, true.
So how do you decide on that? Because here I find more flexibility than a IAS who has to like take orders at various levels. There are various interruptions. So I often am seeing this like going across this dilemma. So
It's a very good question because this is a question that I also thought about a lot. The thing is that when you are working from IRMA in that kind of a setup, you are going in a project mode. You
Mhm.
are given a very specific objective to work there. Let's say, like I was given to implement Right to Education Act in
Right.
tribal areas. It was a very specific objective. But when you are actually posted as an IS officer, you have to run the entire organization, and running that entire organization means doing a lot of routine things. Like you'll be typically working on a file
Correct.
when you're working in a government, and you will be dealing with a lot of HR issues yourself. There is no HR, extra HR. You are the IS officer, or
Correct, correct. I made my own
you are.
identity card, so I know I designed it
Yes,
in my word.
yes.
Yeah.
So working conditions in a government are not exactly as what we see in corporate sector. So you have to be your HR, you have to put systems in place, and these are all the things. You have to manage employees' leaves. You have to all the a lot of routine things are happening. You have to see the maintenance of the building. You have to see all the meetings that are happening under you, or you have to see you have to continuously report on a very routine things also to all the schemes that are implemented by the
Correct,
government, like
correct,
Swachhata Abhiyan, Yoga Day, and all that. So these are very routine things that you have to do
correct,
in a
correct,
typical day, irrespective of what service you are in. So in that project element gets sidetracked.
correct, correct. Because
So that
I
is why
see that.
that is why
Yeah.
they have employed you there to
Correct,
focus on that
exactly,
project, because they are not able to do it because of all the routine activities that are happening.
exactly.
And by the time they are actually going to understand the project element also, they're going to be transferred in 1 or 2 years.
Correct, correct,
So
exactly.
that's one limitation that we have. Yes, it is true. We are mostly grappling with routine issues,
I see
and
that there
routine
are
issues
more of,
themselves are
yeah,
so difficult
yes,
because bureaucracy is so rigid that even to do a little bit out of box something, you have to like fight here and there, and a lot of different kinds of attitudes you have to struggle with. So
yeah.
it is true that we end up doing routine things mostly.
Also,
Routine things themselves
yeah.
are so much.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit about your day-to-day job, like because you're in IT and communications. So here, as
Huh.
I'm working, I see that the government is still grappling with digitization. Like people, old age people, like people in the elder who are near to retirement, they grapple a lot with technology. And here, everything is still on paper, still on files.
Yes, it is
So
true here also.
how is the government like taking steps to digitize this thing, or because the world has moved from digitization to cloud like Bahar,
Yes.
and here people are still signing files. Most of the time they're sending files across one person. So
Hmm.
how is the government going to come over this, and when is it going to go to the next level?
So I can talk about my department. I'm currently posted with Department of Posts. So here in our department has initiated an e-filing system in
Mhm.
which the files will be sent, put up, marked down electronically. But
Mhm.
we are in the process of implementing it. But if you look at most of the state governments, it is not going to happen for another 5-10 years. It's not even something that probably they're considering. Probably some advanced state, probably Telangana or some one
No,
or two
no,
states
it's
might
not.
be doing it. It's not. So in general, you'll see that that central government departments are much ahead in
Correct.
adopting technology. So we have our system in place wherein employees do their HR management online. We have that system that I get leaves online when people have to, or their entitlements and all. We manage it online, but it is something that is in process, and there is a huge apathy, and there is a huge rigidity that we have to come across on a daily basis, because most of the people that we work with are in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, in not in 60s, but in their 40s and 50s, who were not introduced to technology the way we were. So obviously they will have that kind of issue. But there are people, young people also here, who are taking up this technology and who are helping me in implementing all these IT innovations in office.
Okay.
So that technology lag, if you know
So
about
can
it,
we propose, like, what do you do at your department? Like, do you propose any trainings that they can undergo, or things like
yes,
that?
we conduct regular trainings. We have a software that is developed by outsourcing to TCS.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that software, and we give trainings on it to people. We identify people who will be more readily be able to adopt the
Yeah.
technology. So we give training. We identify those people. We give trainings to those people.
Okay.
Dipali ma'am, I have one question. One question is how to absorb news and which news to absorb. Recently, there was news that a character threw one's phone and he slapped one of the guy on the road, something like that. So, is it some news that we should reject that news, or we should definitely read that news and take as learning?
Yeah, if you go through, since you're talking about this particular news, you'll see that in GS there is this paper called as ethics, GS4, in which you are going to be given case studies. So it may so happen that this can come as a case study to you in your exam or in your mock test, that you're a collector and you are dealing with a mob, or one of your juniors has slapped a member of the public. So how will you deal with such a junior? What will you do? So you can think in those angles, but it is true that most of the news is not supposed to be consumed when you're preparing. Most of the political election related news, BJP kya kar rahi hai, Congress what is doing, these kind of news are not required. So you can totally skip that, because as civil servants you will be an apolitical officer. So you are really not going to be involved with party politics. So because of that, those kind of questions are not asked, and you can get more and more clarity as to what kind of news you have to focus on when you keep going through the UPSC syllabus and previous year question papers. Then you will get more and more clarity as to what kind of news you have to focus.
Oh, also, Dipali ma'am, how can we connect to you if you want to seek any help? How can we connect to you?
Yes, yes. I'll just give you my Telegram ID. Please note it down. I'll give it to um, Shrikant also, my Telegram ID. In case you guys want, you can take it from him. It's at Dipali DEEPALI 3006. So you can get in touch with me on Telegram. You can ask any doubts. Okay, any doubt that you have. Don't think that your doubt is something that is not important enough. Every doubt is important, and it's a very good thing to have a doubt. Only after doubt you get clarity. So please do ask any doubt that you have. Have you
Hello,
got it? Dipali DEEPALI 3006.
hello, Dipali
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, I want to ask a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Ma'am, what is your timetable that you have followed during your job to manage your UPSC studies, ma'am? Can you please share with us?
Oh, okay. So my timetable was, I was working when I was working in Hyderabad. Then I was doing my job. I think I'm not sure whether Saturday was off or not. I'm not sure at this point. No, it was not.
Only second Saturdays
Only second Saturdays. Okay.
since forever.
So
Yeah.
okay. See, I don't remember. It was a very long time back. So I used to go back in the evenings and I used to study. And then in the mornings, I used to get up and I used to study. Then I used to go to office. Then office, I used to try to, because in office, you don't get a lot of time or you won't get a lot of focus. So you can probably do some newspaper reading at that time in your lunch hour around that time. And on Sundays, entire day used to go on studying. That was my side.
So ma'am, कभी आपको feel हुआ ऐसा कि that you should quit your job and do a full time prep for the UPSC?
Yeah, actually, I did quit my job. I did quit my job after I did quit, and I last one attempt I gave with only preparing. And I did. If I had an option like commerce, I did not have to quit. But the optional was taking all the space, and I had to quit, and I had to join coaching for that. So I did quit. But you don't need to quit if you're choosing the right optional. Please remember this.
And ma'am,
Ma'am,
after
what was
the
your optional?
ma'am after
My optional was anthropology.
ma'am, जब आपने job quit कर दी, ma'am, what was your plan B? If you don't able to get into the UPSC,
I did not
but you
think of a plan B. Actually, I had this confidence in me that there are certain tweaks that I have to do in my preparation strategy, and if I do those, then I have a good chance of clearing. And yes, there are moments when you have self-doubt, but mostly I was very much engrossed in preparation. And once you actually start preparing, you'll experience this, that you get so engrossed in it. Then at that time you're not thinking of clearing. You're thinking of, oh, okay, I have to do that topic. Then I have to write this exam. Then I have to write that essay. So you're mostly thinking about those things rather than thinking whether I'm clear or not.
okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think so all the doubts are clear.
Yeah.
So thanks
So
a lot.
thank you very much, all of you. It was a very nice It was a very nice interaction with you. I almost lived my that UPSC journey because of you people. Thanks to you. And if you have any doubts, I've already given you my Telegram ID. You can contact me anytime.
Yes, ma'am. It has been a very productive weekend for all of us who
Well,
joined here.
brilliant.
Yes, ma'am. And also, I think your words were inspiring. I mean, like inside we were having a doubt whether after joining a management institute, is it good to pursue a career in UPSC or something? But yeah, well, as you said, MBA is all about exploring things, and when you find your passion, you need to take it. So that was inspiring, and we are even trying to think of making a UPSC. I mean, like a group or something where like-minded people can join and they can interact.
Yes, it will be very helpful for you.
Yeah, and we'll discuss on that and get back to you. So we'll be needing your guidance on that also.
Sure. I'm available.
Apart from that, and thanks a lot, ma'am, for giving your time. No, you'll be busy every day, so thanks for giving us your time. It has been good.
No problem. No problem. It was very nice to interact with you. It was a very interactive session.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank
Thanks,
all the
Pooja.
participants here. Yeah. Yes, thank you, ma'am. Yes, thank you.